I believe 100% that elections in Uganda need to be suspended. Ugandan elections need to be suspended. Elections in Uganda right now are less a democratic process and more a democratic ritual. The one thing that for me is completely unacceptable is the loss of life. How many Ugandans have lost their lives in this election cycle alone? In the last few days, 22 members of the opposition had been killed. My question to you is, how many people would it have taken to die for you to feel as though something was wrong? Because if even one person loses their life to this so-called democratic process, that's one person too many. Way too many Ugandans are dying for what? To vote. Ugandans don't even want to vote. They want services. After 4 years, nearly 4 years, it feels good to say, what's going on, people? Welcome back to the 256 podcast. It's myself, Hakim K, aka El Presidente. And it's been a while since I've been here. It's been a while. I've been away for a minute. And I'll be very honest with you lot. I didn't know when I was going to come back. And I didn't plan to come back now. But I feel like I've been forced to. I've been forced to come back. It's been a week since the elections in Uganda. And I've stayed quiet for a lot of things that I've seen within society. And even in the whole build up to the elections, I've not said anything. But after what we saw last week, and after what's transpired over the last week, and that's why I wanted to wait a week, because I wanted to allow things to slowly manifest themselves so we get a greater picture of what was actually going on. I felt like I had no choice but to come here and say something. And I want to make something clear from the jump, right? I want to make something very clear from the jump. I am not aligned with the Ugandan government. I'm not a member of the NRM. I am not aligned with Uganda's opposition. I am not a member of NUP. I'm not a member of FDC. I'm not a member of ANT. I'm not a member of DP or any of that. I am aligned with what's best for Uganda. That's my concern. Our number one responsibility is the well-being of Uganda. We need to be focusing on what's best for Uganda moving forward. This is why what I'm about to say is going to anger a lot of people. What I'm going to say might sound outlandish. It might sound crazy. But I stand on it, right? Now, I genuinely believe where we are right now, after seeing what happened last week, after seeing the elections, after seeing the build up to elections, after seeing the internet being cut off, whether it was the government that cut it off or is what, Balam said, Honorable Balam said that, a ship in Mombasa, cut a internet cable in two. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just telling you what I heard. So when you see all of that and then you see what's happened after, the leader of the opposition is missing. Yeah, is in hiding. When you see all these things that are happening in Uganda right now, I believe 100% that elections in Uganda need to be suspended. Ugandan elections need to be suspended. I don't see a need or a use for elections in Uganda under the current climate. Because based off of what I'm seeing, based off of what I'm hearing from both the government and the opposition, elections in Uganda right now are less a democratic process and more a democratic ritual. It seems more of a ritual to uphold this idea of democracy as opposed to actually exercising it. And this isn't just because of what the opposition is saying. This is because of what the government themselves are saying. The president of Uganda was interviewed and he was asked about rigging, and he himself said that the opposition are the one who rig elections. the president himself turned around and said that the opposition are criminals, meaning the government does not believe, the president does not believe that the opposition are good faith actors. From when a government feels as though it cannot hold elections without deploying military personnel on the streets, in the build-up and in the aftermath, then that means the idea of a peaceful election does not exist. I've seen videos coming out online of military personnel beating civilians. I don't know if they're true. We live in the age of AI. I'm just telling you what the internet's telling me. I'm just telling you what I've seen. Now, I'm not saying they are real, but if they are real, let's just engage with me. If for whatever reason the videos we're seeing of military personnel beating civilians, if they're real, then that is an indication that Uganda has not yet entered the age of elections. We're not there. Because why are the military on the streets to begin with? An election's meant to be what? It's meant to be what? Just a vote. People turn up to the polling stations, tick who they want, and walk away. How and why does that require military personnel to be deployed on the streets? The deployment of military personnel during an election, right, is an admission from the government, right, that there is an absence of peace in the nation. So if the government feels as though it cannot hold elections without military personnel, and that it cannot hold elections without the opposition, yeah, quote unquote, rigging the elections and the opposition partaking in criminal activities, then the government needs to ask itself whether or not these elections are beneficial for the nation. And the same thing goes for the opposition. Former leader of the opposition, Dr. Kizza Besigye, said that if anyone believes that the 2026 elections will end with the current president being ousted, is a fool. This is a man who dedicated his life to challenging the status quo. This is a man who is currently in prison on treason charges. This is a man who has stood against the current president time and time again. And that's further proof to that is the fact that the current leader of the opposition, Bobi Wine, Mr. Robert Kyagulanyi, he says that he kept telling his people that this was a protest vote. Think about that. The leader of the opposition kept telling people that when you go to the polls, it's a protest vote. Meaning you're not actually voting for change, your vote is a protest. Because he knew and he understood that there was no way that the elections were going to end with anything other than the current president being announced as winner. So my question to the opposition is this: if you genuinely feel as though the elections are predetermined, if you genuinely feel as though the elections are not going to bring about any sort of real change, why are you partaking in it? Why are you taking part in an election that you do not believe is free and fair? You're turning up to the polls on election day. You're smiling. You're waiting in queue. You're going up. You're ticking. You're showing everyone you voted. You're putting your voting card wherever it's meant to go in basins. In 2026, Ugandans in Kampala still voting in basins. In big 2026. And you're more than happy to show the world that you're voting, that you're taking part in this democratic process. Yet you yourself don't believe that the democratic process is actually working. Why are you taking part in it? Ugandans need to understand, yeah? They're not props. Because right now, it seems as though both the government and the opposition agree on one thing: that the democratic process of elections is not working. The government feels as though it needs to deploy military personnel. The opposition feels as though no change is truly going to come across. So if both sides agree that elections are not going to bring about any sort of real change, why are we holding them? Because what it seems to me now, these elections are doing more harm to the well-being of Uganda than any good. What good has come out of it? What good comes out of it? They showed in Uganda, for example, right? Less than it was 45% turnout. Less than half of eligible voters turned up. Less than half. What does that tell you? That the majority of people in the country don't care about the elections anyway, those who are eligible for it. Yet people then turn around and say that we want democracy. Where's the democracy? And this is not me saying that the government that the government is undemocratic. That's not what I'm saying. Those ain't my words. I'm just analysing what I'm seeing. I'm taking the government's own words alongside the opposition's own words, right? And I'm then basically saying, where's the democratic process that this is supposed to be? Because right now, elections in Uganda seem to be more a democratic ritual where Ugandans are being used as props. If the opposition genuinely believes, yeah, that the elections are rigged, then their participation in it, right, is nothing more than them being used as props in a legitimacy ritual to rubber stamp the idea that democracy exists so that cameras can capture people voting. Ugandans are not props. Ugandans need to ask themselves, are you citizens of a republic or are you props to a broken institution? Because guess what? And the reason why I'm so fired up about it is because away from that, I don't care who comes out on top. I don't care whether there's rigging, whether there's this. The one thing that for me is completely unacceptable is the loss of life. How many Ugandans have lost their lives in this election cycle alone? There was a deleted tweet from a certain individual who I'm not going to name, right? But it was a deleted tweet from a certain individual who said, yeah, that in the last few days, 22 members of the opposition had been killed. 22 in the last few days. Can you imagine? I saw a tweet, right? And this is why I had to come back and I had to speak on it, right? I saw a tweet and again, because people tweet and delete, right? I saw a tweet, and I'm not going to mention these people's names because, I love my freedom, right? I saw a tweet from a certain individual who turned around and said that they are glad that this election has been less violent than previous ones. Think about that. My question to you is, how many people would it have taken to die for you to feel as though something was wrong? Because if even one person loses their life to this so-called democratic process, that's one person too many. Way too many Ugandans are dying for what to vote. Ugandans don't even want to vote. They want services. Ugandans want a healthcare system that actually works for them, that speaks on the current healthcare crises that Ugandans are facing. Ugandans want an education system that is modern and prepares them for the modern world, for the digital world. Parents want to know that when they send their kids to school, they're teachers who are paid and who are qualified to actually educate their kids. Ugandans want roads that are safe. How many Ugandans die on traffic accidents every single year? Ugandans want services first. That's what we want. Put democracy aside. It sounds good on paper, but what's the point of having a democratic process of voting, right, when there's no services to back it up? How much money goes into the election? How much money goes into the election? How much money is wasted from both the government and the opposition in a process? And the thing with the opposition that frustrates me, right, and I think most of my frustration is towards Uganda's opposition. The thing that frustrates me about the opposition more than anything, you say that the elections are rigged. You say that there's no change, but then you pump millions into it. You wow people up. The Ugandan opposition kept saying that this is a protest vote. The biggest protest you could have done is not taking part in the elections, full stop. Can you imagine the scenes if on election day, this government stands uncontested? Despite the fact that the whole world knows that there is an opposition. Imagine they didn't go up and take part. You're paying to have your name on the ballot. So you're still paying the very electoral commission that you're claiming is rigged. Don't take part in it. All you're doing is you're rubber stamping nonsense. You're claiming that this thing doesn't work. It's a broken system. It's messed up. It's this, it's that. Why are you taking part in it? Let's get to a place where the government does not feel the need to deploy military personnel on the streets for an election. Let's get to a place where the opposition genuinely believes that they have a chance of real change. Because right now, the atmosphere in Uganda is not fit for elections. It isn't. It's doing more harm than good. People are losing their lives. Money is being spent. No, let me rephrase that. Money is being wasted. Trust in the institutions no longer exists. People have lost hope. People have lost hope in the institutions that are supposed to be there. So my question now is, for Ugandans, my question genuinely is, if the government doesn't feel as though the opposition are good faith actors, if the opposition do not feel as though the elections are going to bring about any sort of genuine change, my question is, why the hell are we continuing to hold them? Because how is 2026 different to 2021? How is 2021 different to 2016? And my question now is, how is 2026 going to be different to 2031? I love podcasts. I love listening to them, right? And I love radio, right? I love the art of public discourse.